When a woman says to a man, "I want you so bad right now," it's not just eroticism, it's existential validation. We tend to underestimate the psychological weight that desire carries in a romantic or sexual context. But this phrase, short, primal, unfiltered, lands directly at the intersection of biology and identity. You're not just telling him that he's attractive, you're signaling something far deeper, that he has penetrated your defenses, stirred something instinctual in you, and awakened an urgency that you can no longer rationally contain. And for a man, hearing that, especially from a woman he deeply values, can be profoundly grounding. It tells him he is enough. Remember that men are raised, socially, biologically, even spiritually, to chase, to pursue, to earn attention. They're constantly navigating a world where they must prove their usefulness to gain access to love or intimacy. And this isn't modern gender politics, this is ancient psychological architecture. So when a woman boldly expresses unfiltered desire, especially in a space as vulnerable as the bedroom, it disrupts the traditional pursuit dynamic. He says, "You don't have to chase me right now. I've already chosen you." This phrase also matters because it expresses present tense urgency. Not "I wanted you earlier," not "I want you later," but right now. And that immediacy is loaded. It anchors your desire in the present moment, which is the only real moment we have. You're not offering affection as a reward or a future promise. You're saying, "This is real, this is alive, this is now." That kind of anchoring pulls a man into full presence. He becomes hyper aware, not just of your body, but of his own capacity to fulfill a deep need in you. And it's worth saying that this isn't manipulation. It's not about using your words to control him or win his loyalty. This is about genuine connection, about emotional and sexual honesty. The reason it's powerful is because it's real. You're naming something that exists in the room, giving shape to tension, to chemistry, to shared magnetism. And when you speak like that from the body, from the heart, you invite him to do the same. There's also a philosophical dimension here. In relationships, especially long-term ones, the mundane often buries the erotic. Schedules, chores, emails, fatigue, they all become armor. But "I want you so bad right now" slices through the armor. It reasserts the animal underneath the human. It says, "Despite everything else, I still see you as the person who stirs my blood." That's more than sexy. That's redemptive. It reignites vitality, it restores polarity, and it reminds both partners that they're still playing the beautiful, dangerous game of desire. And let's not ignore the vulnerability in saying something so raw. For many women, desire has been something to guard, something to ration, something to apologize for. But owning your hunger, your lust, is a radical act of self-possession. It declares, "I know what I want and I'm not ashamed to name it." That kind of confidence is magnetic. It doesn't diminish your feminine power, it sharpens it. It invites him to meet you at your level, bold, unfiltered, present. So here's the bottom line. Desire, expressed clearly and courageously, transforms intimacy. It stops being transactional and starts becoming transcendental. When you look him in the eye and say, "I want you so bad right now," you are not just expressing need. You are offering truth. And in that truth, he finds not only pleasure, but purpose. Never underestimate the spiritual weight of honest desire. Spoken clearly, it becomes a bridge, not just to his body, but to his soul. When a woman says to a man, "You feel so good," she isn't just offering a compliment. She's offering something far more potent. Affirmation that his presence is felt, that his physicality has impact, that his masculine form is not just acknowledged, but welcomed. And that's no small thing. In a culture where men are often taught to suppress their instincts, where their strength is either weaponized or subdued, this phrase carries a kind of sacred permission. It tells him that he is safe to be what he is, embodied, expressive, tactile, and that those very instincts are not only accepted but desired. This matters deeply because male psychology is wired to seek evidence of affect. Men don't simply want to be around you, they want to have an impact on you. They want to know that their touch changes something in you, that it evokes sensation, that it matters. This isn't just about sex, it's about significance. When you tell him he feels good, you're feeding a part of his masculine psyche that is starving in silence, the part that wonders whether he's enough, whether his strength is too much, whether his body is truly wanted. Now, it's important to note that this phrase, simple as it is, delivers something both primal and profound. It's primal in that it speaks directly to our nervous systems, skin-on-skin contact, the felt sense of closeness, and the mirroring of pleasure. These are ancient, but it's also profound because it subtly tells him you're not invisible. Your body isn't just a utility, it's a source of joy. That alone can heal something. That alone can deepen intimacy beyond words. And the tone you use matters just as much as the phrase itself. If it's whispered, moaned, or simply breathed, each version communicates something slightly different. The key is that it must be honest. If you say it robotically without presence, it loses its transformative power. But when it's said in the moment as a genuine expression of pleasure, it becomes a signal that he is seen, not for his performance, but for his being. The question of listening is worth remembering that many men walk through the world carrying a kind of invisible silence, a silence that comes from being expected to suppress sensitivity, to mask vulnerability, to always perform. But in the privacy of intimacy, when you look at him and say, "You feel so good," you're dismantling that silence. You're saying, "You don't have to pretend right now. You can just be. And who you are in this moment is more than enough." And that's why this matters far beyond the bedroom. Because what you're doing is creating a space where masculinity and tenderness don't have to be at odds, where strength doesn't require stoicism, where vulnerability doesn't mean weakness. You're building a bridge, not just to deeper pleasure, but to deeper trust. A man who knows he feels good to you isn't just confident in his touch, he's anchored in his worth. Give him that gift and you don't just ignite his desire, you awaken his soul. When a woman looks a man in the eye and says, "I love how you take control," she is doing something that resonates far deeper than mere praise. She is speaking to one of the foundational pillars of masculine psychology, the desire to lead, to guide, to hold steady in the storm. And she's affirming that his strength isn't oppressive, but attractive, desired, trusted. Now, this is controversial in some circles because we live in a culture that often pathologizes dominance. And yes, dominance can become tyranny, just as passivity can become negligence. But that's not what we're talking about here. This isn't about dominance for the sake of power. It's about presence. It's about the man who knows when to act decisively, when to step forward without hesitation, and when to carry the moment with confidence that doesn't crush but contains. Women who understand this, women who know how to say this and mean it, unlock something in men that even they often don't realize is lying dormant. They awaken the noble side of dominance, the protective side of control, the part that says, "I've got this, you can exhale." Because for many men, that's what leadership is. Not control as force, but control as responsibility, control as an offering of safety. But here's the catch. For this phrase to land with full impact, it has to come from a woman who is not passive herself. That's what creates the alchemy. It's not submission rooted in fear, it's surrender rooted in trust. And trust is built through discernment. When you tell a man that you love how he takes control, you are saying, "I trust your vision, I trust your timing, I trust your hands." You're not abdicating your power, you're choosing to co-create with his. And this hits a nerve in the masculine psyche. Why? Because every man, whether he admits it or not, wonders if his initiative is welcome. He wonders if his touch will be rejected, if his direction will be questioned, if his leadership will be ridiculed. And many men, after years of criticism or disconnection, retreat into apathy. They stop trying, they dull their edge. Not because they've lost their nature, but because they've lost the sense that their nature is needed. You want to bring out the best in a man? Tell him you love how he takes control when he does it well. Be specific. Be present. Let your tone carry the kind of clarity that says, "I see what you're doing and it works for me." And what you'll notice is that the more you reflect that back to him, the more confident and attuned his leadership becomes. Not just in the bedroom, but in the relationship as a whole. There's a deeper truth here, one that's both psychological and archetypal. Masculine control, when integrated and mature, creates room for feminine expression. It's the container that allows chaos to dance. It's the edge that gives form to fire. And when you speak directly to that, when you say you love it, you're giving a man not just validation, but direction. You're showing him how to meet you. Because desire at its core is not about friction, it's about polarity. And polarity thrives in the tension between trust and command, between surrender and strength, between openness and direction. I love how you take control isn't a weak phrase. It's a powerful one. It's a signal. It says, I'm here. I'm with you. Lead. And when a man knows that his leadership turns you on, not just emotionally, but viscerally, he doesn't just rise to the occasion, he rises into who he's meant to be. When a woman says to a man, you make me feel so safe, she is doing something that is far more profound than giving a compliment. She's naming one of the deepest needs in the masculine psyche, to be a source of protection, of stability, of certainty in a world that often feels volatile and indifferent. And she's not simply speaking to physical safety. She's referring to emotional safety, spiritual safety, even psychological sanctuary. You're saying, in your presence, I can let go of my defenses. Now, it's easy to dismiss this as sentimental or worse, manipulative, as if it's some kind of strategic phrase to stroke a man's ego. But the truth is, the desire to be a protector is not just cultural conditioning, it's archetypal. It runs deep. Men, in their most integrated form, are not driven by conquest alone. They are driven by a kind of sacrificial responsibility. And when a woman reflects back to a man that she feels safe with him, she's affirming his highest instinct, not his lowest. The question, though, is why this phrase, why this sentiment has such emotional gravity? And the answer lies in the tension men constantly carry between their strength and the fear of misusing it. Because strength, in and of itself, is morally neutral. It can harm or it can heal. And many men are deeply aware of the potential for both. So when a woman says, you make me feel safe, she's saying, in effect, you've taken your power and used it wisely. You haven't imposed yourself. You've protected me from what's outside and what's within. That kind of affirmation reshapes a man. It solidifies his moral center. It reminds him that his strength has purpose, that it isn't just tolerated, but welcomed. But this phrase doesn't just transform the man who hears it, it transforms the woman who speaks it. Why? Because to genuinely feel safe in someone's presence, you must first know what danger feels like. You must know vulnerability and the courage it takes to let your guard down. That's what makes the statement so honest. It's not naive, it's not a projection, it's the recognition of stability earned, not assumed. And here's where the depth of intimacy truly begins. Because once safety is established, all the other dimensions of desire, play, exploration, surrender become possible. You cannot open fully to someone you do not trust. You cannot give without reservation to someone who makes you feel unstable. So when a woman names her safety, she's not just talking about past experiences, she's declaring a future possibility. She's saying, I could go deeper with you. There's a reason this is one of the most powerful things a man can hear. It's not about puffing up his pride. It's about anchoring his purpose. And in an era where masculinity is often either idealized or demonized, this kind of clarity is vital. It tells men your strength matters, but only when it is grounded in conscience. Your presence matters, but only when it brings peace. And your leadership matters, but only when it creates space, not fear. This is why these words, when spoken authentically, have the power to shape not only romantic dynamics, but individual identities. Because safety isn't a luxury in relationships. It's the prerequisite for everything meaningful that follows. So when you say to a man, you make me feel so safe, understand this, you're not giving him power. You're recognizing how he's chosen to use it. And that recognition can change the course of a man's life. He said, when a woman whispers to a man, "I want you so bad right now," she's not just expressing lust, she's embodying a deeply human and profoundly vulnerable truth. The longing to be chosen, to be desired, to be fully seen in the present moment without shame or hesitation. It's an eruption of raw authenticity. And for many men, that kind of expression is not only arousing, it's redemptive. See, we tend to underestimate how profoundly men crave to be wanted. We assume they always are, that desire is their default state, but this is a shallow understanding of masculine psychology. The truth is, many men walk through life unsure if they're truly wanted for who they are, or merely tolerated for what they provide. So when a woman makes a bold, unfiltered declaration of her desire, not as a performance, but as a spontaneous truth, it cuts through the fog of uncertainty and reaches the very core of his identity. This isn't about objectification, it's about affirmation. It's the difference between being needed and being desired. To be needed is often utilitarian, it's about function, responsibility, duty. But to be desired, to be wanted, especially in the intimate space between two people, is to be seen as inherently valuable, even sacred. That kind of acknowledgement speaks to a man's worth, not just his utility. And what's more, when a woman says this in the heat of intimacy, she is stepping into her own power. She's not waiting to be acted upon. She's claiming her space as an erotic subject, not just an object of someone else's longing. That shifts the dynamic. It creates mutuality, an energetic exchange, not a one-sided pursuit. In that moment, there's a merging of assertiveness and surrender, and both are necessary for the full expression of intimacy. But let's go deeper. What does it mean for someone to be wanted so bad? It's a surrender of inhibition, yes, but also of narrative. It's the collapse of stories, roles, expectations. You're not saying, "I want you because you're successful," or "I want you because you've earned it." You're saying, right now, in this moment, apart from all titles and achievements, I want you. And that, psychologically, is a very difficult thing for many men to believe, because they've been taught they must earn everything, including affection. So when this phrase is spoken sincerely, it challenges that internalized belief system. It interrupts the script that says love is conditional, that closeness must be negotiated through status or performance. Instead, it becomes a gift, one that cannot be bought, only received. And that reception is no small thing, because to be truly wanted, not for what you do, but for who you are, is an existential affirmation. It says, you are enough, not because of what you produce, but because of your presence. In a world that constantly evaluates people by metrics and outcomes, that kind of momentary truth is profoundly liberating. And let's not mistake it for manipulation. This phrase loses all its power if it's said to get something in return. It's only powerful when it's unguarded, uncalculated, and rooted in mutual respect. Then it becomes a bridge. It fuses longing with love, attraction with appreciation. So when you say to a man, "I want you so bad right now," you're not just igniting passion. You're restoring something deeper. You're reminding him that he is wanted, not just for what he gives, but for who he is. And in that moment, everything changes. When a woman looks a man in the eye and says, "You make me feel safe," something profound happens in the architecture of his psyche. This isn't a compliment in the conventional sense. It's a form of emotional initiation. It affirms not only his strength, but the purpose of that strength. And that matters, because strength without purpose is hollow, even dangerous. But when a man knows that his presence makes a woman feel protected, physically, emotionally, spiritually, he understands that his masculinity is not something to suppress or apologize for. It's something to channel. Now, let's step back for a moment and ask a more foundational question. Why does this phrase matter so much to men? Why does it have the power to soften their defenses and solidify their devotion? The answer lies in the ancient, even archetypal structure of the male psyche. Across cultures and eras, men have been biologically and psychologically wired to protect, to provide, to create order out of chaos. That instinct isn't toxic. It's primal. And when that instinct is acknowledged in a way that is emotionally intimate and personally specific, it does something crucial. It grounds a man in meaning. Not ego, meaning. Because a man can go to the gym, earn a 7-figure salary, master his craft, But if he doesn't feel like his strength makes someone's life better, especially the life of a woman he cares about, then all of that effort floats in abstraction. It becomes performative, not purposeful. So when a woman tells him, "You make me feel safe," she's giving his strength direction. She's saying what you are matters. What you do is seen. Who you are brings peace into the space we share. And peace, ironically, is what every good man is ultimately trying to create. Even in the fiercest, most competitive environments, the masculine pursuit at its highest level is order, it's structure, stability, and yes, safety. Safety that doesn't just protect from danger, but allows growth, vulnerability, freedom. Now, this doesn't mean women are weak or dependent or incapable of creating their own safety. That would be a shallow interpretation. In fact, only a strong woman can genuinely say this phrase without manipulation, because it requires the strength to trust, to be open, to be emotionally honest. That's what makes it powerful. Not the words themselves, but the courage it takes to mean them. You see, men aren't just looking for admiration, they're starving for significance. And when a woman says she feels safe, she's placing trust in his character, not just his competence. That's a heavy responsibility, but it's also a gift, one that calls him into maturity, into accountability, into depth,